Let's be honest here. All right, so let's take a look at our image here. Oh, there it is. Beautiful. The engineer of everything. Who's been on a plane here before? I feel like it's a pretty common thing. All right. I wasn't on a plane, I think, until like 5 years ago for the first time. And I got made fun of a lot for that. I've never been on a plane? Like, I've been to so many places. And I'm so sorry. But I caught up. I've had a few trips on planes, and, you know, a lot of business, a lot of hustle and bustle. You get in, you get out, but there are so many moving parts. Let's take a look real quick at 7 things that need to work if you want your plane to stay in the sky and for you not to fall out of it. All right. First, this is a fuselage. That's the fancy word for the main body of the plane. You know, you got to inspect that. You got to make sure there's not like a huge hole in it, for instance, right? Maybe delay a flight if there is. No, we're going to risk it this time around. We'll make it. It's only from New York to Miami. So that's one part that's important. And then, you know, you have some other ones. A lot of these are obvious, right? The wings give you the lift. If one of the wings sort of just falls off or gets hacked off or something, your flight is screwed. Also, the tail, that gives you the balance so that you're not veering around all over the place. You know, you can actually like walk to the bathroom in the plane on a straight line and not like be slammed against anything. That's probably because the tail's working pretty well. And, you know, the pilot knows how to steer and all that stuff. Retractable landing gear. How else are you going to land smoothly, right? Can you imagine if the wheels don't work and you sort of just nosedive into the cement? And, you know, just grab your breathing masks, everyone. It'll be a bumpy ride, you know, like a bumpy landing. It's not maybe a little more than that. So that's pretty important. Over in the cockpit, you sort of have the headquarters, right? Pilot needs to know what they're doing. The co-pilot, you know, it is one of the most overwhelming sights, I think, to look at all the different buttons and switches. And then to see the pilot just go like to the 55th on the right. Oh, switch that one. And then, you know, 83 down. You know, turn that lever there. And just know how to do that. That takes training. It's not like, oh, I think it's this button. So you need to have everything in control at headquarters. Windows got to be pretty strong. The kind of air pressure you're dealing with, the higher you get up. Look out the window and the shards of glass all of a sudden start flying in your face and destroy you. That doesn't happen because the windows are built well. And then, of course, if you want to go anywhere, instead of just staring at the runway the entire time, the engine's got to work. Give you the thrust and the power. So the aviation engineer is the one responsible for those things, right? That's your job. Check out those things, make sure it's functioning. A lot's on the line, right? Well, I want to think of it in a bigger perspective. I want us to think of God as humanity's engineer. We all have key parts. They're all interconnected. They all flow together. So, similar to how you want to trust an aviation engineer to know how to do their job, and we do, even though, you know, does anyone ever say, oh, before each flight, this is our aviation engineer who put this, you know, plane together? No, we don't, right? We sort of implicitly trust it's going to go well, right? It happens thousands of times. And we don't think it through a lot, but we're putting a lot of trust in the design of the plane that we're actually going to be able to go from point A to point B in one piece, right? Take it for granted. So, sexual immorality is what we left off with last week. And that's a pretty big topic. And I thought we should slow things down. And I mentioned, right, sometimes we're going to go through a lot of verses, or, you know, a few, and sometimes we're going to sort of really slow it down. Well, we're going to stop right here. We're going to grind to a little bit of a halt, and we want to address this more closely, okay? We want to look at 2 things specifically that are really under attack today, especially this age group, and that is bodies and sexuality. We want to come from that, looking at these things, investigating these things from a humanity engineering perspective. How are those things engineered to work? Our bodies and sexuality, and how are we supposed to think about that, and how does that connect to the supernatural realm? We talked about obstacles, right? Things that prevent us from seeing the bigger picture, the greater world. One of the biggest obstacles will be a wrong view of your physical body and how you use it, which is why I think Paul begins with, top of his list, sexual immorality, which, by the way, that's an umbrella term, right? That's pretty you can fit a lot in there. It's not like he goes and lists every single possible way to sexually sin. He sort of throws the net really wide. We're going to try to break it down a little more specifically. All right, so let's start off with this one. 7 tips. First tip, your body is a gift that the greatest technology is envious of. We are amazing pieces of technology with 2 legs. We just forget about it all the time. All the time. Listen to this quote. Compared to robots, the human body is powerful, flexible, and efficient. It can run for 16 hours every day, governed by a brain that requires less power than a light bulb. We're not really used to reading facts about the body all the time, are we? No, maybe we do, and it's kind of like, oh, basic biology and stuff, cool. But think about all that we can do on such little power output, right? Like, we don't have to, you put in some fuel and you're able to think and imagine and run and live life and do all these flexible things. Machines are trying to, the design of technology and AI and all that, they're trying to catch up to what the human mind already does. And really well. You ever think about that? It's obviously there are ways that technology, is greater than the average human being, but the blueprint of humanity, just how we can combine all different things together and do it pretty smoothly, day in and day out, that's an amazing thing. God made a masterpiece when he made humans. So that's the first thing we want to think about. The body's a gift. It's an amazing piece of technology. So to speak. We're not machines, but you get my point. Second, here's the thing that we want to talk about especially, and I want to really highlight this a little bit. It's sort of like the missing piece from this morning's session, and that is sex. Something that God designed. I want to go out of the way and say this just because it needs to be said. Sex is God's idea. He made humans, designed them to be able to do it, and he also, because he came up with it, has a right to define how it works, what the boundaries are, and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of times it's like Christians and sex, that's like oil and water. It's like, it doesn't mix well. Sex is sort of like real life stuff. Christianity's too busy about like floating off into heaven someday. And that's not true. We talked about that, right? Not true at all. Here's the thing though, let's break this down a little bit. Sex is a very powerful thing because it's literally designed to be a multi-layered physical, chemical, mental, emotional thing that it all gets unleashed. So to unleash it at the wrong time or in the wrong way, it's going to cause a lot of damage and destruction. And in fact, that's why we're going to liken it to fire. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. Let's talk about it from the angle of relationship cement. Like, oh, okay, whatever. Relationship cement. Well, literally, Genesis 1:26, when it says, man and woman shall be joined together, husband and wife, and those two shall become one flesh. That word to become one flesh literally means to be bonded or glued or cemented together, you could say. In other words, there's something that happens when two people release this sexuality. It's meant to bind people in a way that's deeper than any other kind of relationship. But what if you do that bonding with the wrong person or at the wrong time or in the wrong way? Well, it's going to be similar to fire. So fire is a fascinating thing, right? So let's get a couple images up here. You have the fireplace, right? We're going to have a bonfire pretty soon, right? Sometime this week. And, it's a beautiful thing. You get to harness this powerful force, but put it in such a way where it's safe, but still... it gives you all these benefits. It's warm, it looks gorgeous. It's just there's something about fire, right? Humanity and fire. It's almost, we have the two, great cavemen rubbing sticks together, fire, and that's not what happened. That's not what happened at all. But it's just thoroughly ingrained in our minds. Fire is just something that's always kind of been around, and we've interacted with it. But there's this kind of fire, right? The contained, safe fireplace fire. You're not going to go diving head first into it. And then there's this kind of fire, right? The forest fire, the wild, uncontrollable, raging, destructive force that just, can just go on a rampage and cause so much damage and destruction. What's the difference between the first fire and the second fire? Boundaries, right? One fire is contained, the other thing is what happens when a fire is not contained, and it just sort of roams free. and does whatever it wants. It causes a ton of damage. And I'd like to say that that's where sex and fire are they're great analogies. So fire is a great analogy for that. And here's something else, okay, that we want to think about. Sex, it's awkward to talk about in a sense because we either don't talk about it enough. It's almost like in certain circles, go to certain places, it's a thing you don't talk about. Even in the Bible, it's kind of weird. Like, there's a Song of Solomon in the Bible. It's there, and everyone knows it. Everyone's like turning in there. I know that's like a teen thing to do, because everyone, after a while, you find out there's language in there that it's not like other religious parts of the Bible. And you're like, what's in there? And it just seems like, what is this book doing in there? And it's God's idea for it to be in there. It's not like some horny guy just stuck it in. And it's like, oh, I want to add this to the Bible. No, this is God's way of saying, look, there's a way to understand love and sexuality, how it's expressed. And it's in the form of poetry, it's in the form of a story. Like, it's not just like raw facts on sex. 10 things you need to know. Like, it's not a Wikipedia page on it. It's a story, and it's a poem, and it's written very, there's a lot of art and design to how it's written. It's a beautiful piece of literature. But it's an awkward piece of literature if it's, not supposed to be in there. Because no one ever brings it up. Or they'll say really weird stuff about it, like what's in there is the relationship between Jesus and his church. And it's like, I don't want none of that in my relationship with Jesus. I'm sorry, but that's kind of weird. I don't think that's what it teaches, so no problem. So we either don't talk about it enough, kind of taboo, or we talk about it too much in the wrong way. What am I talking about? Well, our culture loves to talk about sex all the time. They shove it down your throat all the time, right? Movies, shows, advertisements, how schools talk about it, and everything is, are you part of LGBTQ or transgender? Or it comes up all the time. Or people joke about it a lot, right? Everything's like a sexual innuendo, or everyone knows how close can I get to the edge without actually saying the obvious thing. It's like an art, The popular people know how to do it well enough to be funny, and it's like an art form, And so it's kind of weird because you have this topic that on the one hand, it's like we don't talk about it in a way that's healthy and educational, and we actually know how to understand it. But then when we do talk about it, it's sort of like we're just half joking about it, half making fun of different groups, different people, or whatever, or somehow it becomes just a part of your persona. So it's a problem. It's really weird. And so that leads us to probably the most awkward topic of the week. We've got to talk about it. And that is, turn this off. We talked about sexual immorality. Well, the word sexual immorality, it comes from the same word we get pornography from. Now, I want to do a delicate dance here. It is not I'm not trying to, let's get into every single awkward possible thing you can say about porn. I am just going to mention a couple of hopefully analogies that help us to think about it. And this is a problem with people. Let's stop pretending that we're too pure to talk about porn. There is a lot of people who struggle with porn in your age group. Let's stop pretending that that's not a thing, and it starts even younger than this age group. It's reality. It's a sad reality, but we're here. The access has never been easier. People struggle with it. And a lot of it starts off with, what do we do with sexuality? People don't know. So you go to places to find out. One thing leads to another, and the world's happy to teach you how it works, right? A lot of people want to teach you how sex works or doesn't work. So let's get to some brass tacks about this. Just 4 principles here, okay? 4 things to think about. First, it's the elephant in the room. Okay? It's the obvious thing that everyone misses. People know it's there, but they also act like they don't. It's ironic to me that you have people like Billie Eilish calling out porn as a destructive thing, more than a lot of churches will. She'll be the one to say, I was into it and it messed me up. And she's not even trying to be like a Christian or anything. She's just saying, objectively speaking, it just messed up my mind, and it does. But you know what? People will listen to that and respect that because it's like, oh, it's Billie Eilish, she's an icon and all that. We shouldn't be behind Billie Eilish where it's like, no, Billie Eilish said it, so now it's safe for us to say it too. No. It's always been a problem. It's always been wrong. But it's so weird. It's like an elephant in the room. There you go. There you go. It's also a dragon in the room. Elephant is kind of, it's a big, but the dragon really captures, the danger of it a little more. Tis a mighty foe to slay. Okay? Let's get a little Shakespearean. But dragons are so cool, by the way. I mean, I just can't get over it. But anyway, porn is a difficult thing. It inserts itself into a life, and it's like a really well-embedded tick. And it just gets big and fat and ugly and just sucks up part of you. And it's hard to get off. It's not as simple, I'm going to pray it away, God help me, and then the next day it's gone. I don't look at porn anymore. That's not how it works. We all know that's not how it works. Not saying prayer is not important and not part of the answer, but this let's turn this into a formula. My 30-second prayer to God will deliver me from this. Sin is more difficult than that. In fact, that's why Paul says, right, when it comes to sin, like the radioactive material, kill it before it kills you. Not make a little alliance with it, not sort of like, hey, settle down. No, kill it. Get rid of it. It is a difficult foe. And then just another angle from this. It's also like a cockroach in the room. And there was this, I have a few personal stories from this, and my family does too. Very straightforward. But there are these apartments in certain places, in certain large towns, where, the lights are all turned off, and someone comes home and they're their apartment and the lights go on and you just see all these little things just scurry off into the deepest, darkest corners. You know what was there. There's a little cockroach party going on. And I was like, oh, we're out of here. Lights on. And out they go. And that's how it works with porn. It resists light. It doesn't porn works in isolation and in darkness and in secrecy. So it resists attempts to sort of illuminate it and make it let's actually do something about this. Let's actually address it, the elephant in the room. It likes to hide. And that's what's so weird. It affects how people see each other. It affects relationships. Some people, they don't know how to relate to other human beings because their only sort of way of doing that is through porn. And so they go out into the real world. And they're like social hobbits, not short in the sense of height, but socially stunted. It's like, dude, I don't know how to talk to another freaking human being because all my access is through the screen and the rules of how that works, but not the real world. So it's so damaging, so destructive. It doesn't die easily. A cockroach, I guess not all of them, but some of them, they can literally chop off its head, and it can live for 3 more days. What is that? I get the snake for a little few minutes, the little fangs of clicking or whatever after you slice off its head, but 3 days, this thing can scurry around and I just picture it bumping up against the wall, boom, 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 and just figuring out over time. Yeah, anyway, whatever. But yeah, let's circle back and basically there's a lot of things you could say. Right, about this topic. You can't possibly say all that needs to be said in 10 minutes. But let's just overview a couple basic things. Oh, there you go. Disgusting. Ew. Vile. Anyway, if Satan didn't appear in the garden as a serpent, he would have appeared as this. Talking cockroach. Yeah, that wouldn't have been as aesthetic. But anyway, so the elephant in the room, we got to expose it. We got to expose it, right? You got to start with a broken heart. That sounds sort of I have to cry over this. Not necessarily. Maybe. This is deeply emotional for some people. I understand that. But what I mean more so is we got to understand this isn't everyone does it, cares. Or it's just part of, it's just part of sexuality. This is just how we do it. No. Those are all lies. Don't believe that. That's the culture saying that to us and desensitizing us, so we're oh, everyone kind of does it. Sort of like a point where there was a time when, remember, African-American slavery, everyone is sort of doing it. It's been going on for a long time. So is that an argument we want to use? Really? No, we don't. So it doesn't matter how many people are comfortable with it. It's wait a minute. If God is the engineer of everything, including sex, and he tells us things like, this expression of it is damaging and destructive and completely against my design, that should mean something. And it should more than just be Oh, yeah, very true. So distracted. It's, what am I going to do about it? And it starts off with, God, I've already failed to do anything about it. Help me, please. Starting off from there. Now, it's not like it's not that I prayed and therefore it's gone, because a lot of people get angry with God. They're like, God, I was really sorry about it, and I'm praying, and guess what? I wanted to do it the next day. What's wrong with you? That's not God's fault. It's God is going to be there with you step by step for the journey it's going to be. We want it to be a sprint. 100-yard dash, and then, problem and then solved. It's more like a marathon. And I know that's hard to hear, but that is the facts. That's what it means to be enslaved to something. An enslavement wouldn't be called an enslavement if it was a snap of the finger, just, get rid of it. Right? So there's that. Elephant exposure. Also, what about a dragon destroyer? Well, ironic, because I didn't need for this to connect, but this is literally like Lord of the Rings. More like a Hobbit. We're going to talk about that later, but this isn't a solo quest. Same thing with Frodo and all that. Frodo, there was that moment, that one little moment where he's on the edge and all that, but all the build-up up to that, that Frodo wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the Fellowship of the Ring and Sam and all these different things that came together, right? So when it comes to the struggle with porn or just sexual immorality in general, the answer is not, I'm going to be reading my Bible and praying and fighting over this with God all by myself in my room. And I'm not going to let anyone else know about this. No. This is something where I need friends. I need counsel. I need wisdom. I need people I can actually talk to about this. You will never do this alone. You're already alone. That's the thing. You are beaten if you're already in isolation. So you're not going to beat isolation with more isolation, but just make it holy isolation. It doesn't work that way. Right? I do a lot of air quotes, don't I? I'm just noticing myself do this every 5 seconds. Anyways, so I talk. Not a solo quest, like a fellowship. What is that fellowship? Well, hopefully it's family. For some, it's not. Sadly, can't be for various reasons. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's a pastor. Maybe it's a church group. But you've got to outsource. It's got to be outside of the circle of me, myself, and I. And that's a Bible principle too. The Bible talks about. There's even a little verse in Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is a gem. It's like a chef's kiss. There's so much cool stuff in there. But one of the things it says is, if you have one person who falls alone, who's going to help them get up when they fall? But if you have two people and one of them falls, you have the other person there to help you get up, like Sam and Frodo. That's the kind of visual we want. Yeah, it's awkward. Yeah, it's embarrassing. But chances are, a lot of people are going to relate to your struggle. It's not like, you freak, you do that? Not anymore. Not when there's literally 9 out of 10 in a certain demographic that do it. No way. You're going to find sympathy, hopefully. I think you actually will. People in the same boat. And that's great. Let's move on here. Cockroach killer. You've got to surrender some freedom in order to be saved from enslavement. You know what the big problem with porn was? In the old days, it used to be, you had the old magazine, hiding under the bed. Not that we would necessarily relate to that now, 2024, as much. But back in the day, if you wanted to access it, you had the magazine or you had the old movie store and stuff like that. Now, it's on your phone. It's click away. It's a search away. That makes it really hard. Because you don't need a sophisticated, you don't have to go through a sophisticated technological laser field to get access to it. It's there. It's free. On purpose, by the way. A lot of people make money off of people surfing the web and all that. They're lining their pockets. That's a whole other topic. The world's a corrupt, evil place. But the access, that's a big part of the problem. It's not that people wouldn't do it if it was hard to do, but obviously, probably less people would because it just involves more work and maybe you're not as dedicated. But if this is right there, it's easy to do. So maybe can we rethink our relationship with our phones and our relationship with technology? Do I dare say that? Can I say that? Our phones are neutral tools depending on how we use them, right? Well, I am never going to be the person where it's get out, get rid of all technology, it's all evil. No, it's not. It is not evil. How it can be used can be evil. It also can be used for great good. Because it's not get rid of all technology, kicking your TV, throw it through a store window, just toss it out. Frisbee your Xbox out the window. No, I'm not saying that. But have 24/7 access to everything possible on your phone, maybe that's a really stupid idea. Maybe that's really dumb. And maybe we need to wake up to that and be like, I need to not. Yeah, temptation is real serious stuff, man. But yeah, right in my pocket is like the big, kahuna of all temptations. But I'll resist. I won't. People don't, right? It's not just a matter of strong willpower. That's a fantasy, right? Anyway, some things to think about. And also, it is a fight. But each little victory that God gives, and He does give victory. By the way, I want you to all know there are plenty of people who God has helped through this. So that, is it all completely gone? Do they never have the urge to ever look at it again? Or is it something that they're like, they're flawless now? No, but they are not enslaved to it anymore. It is possible. It is possible. It's not like, it's a sickness. I'm just sick with this. I can't do anything about it. That's another lie. Don't believe that. Do not believe that. So, we'll leave it there. Now let's finish this off here and just look at a few principles about just when it comes to bodies and sexuality and the whole engineering perspective. Forward is like slicing a wing off a plane. It's like flying through a herd of birds. Think of it that way. It will wreck the flight. Forget about soaring to the supernatural realm. It will ruin how high you can go. It will constantly be bringing you down. And that's just what sin does generally. I'm not going to make it seem like sexual immorality is the only sin. There's other sins, right? And just in general, as a general rule, sin likes to break what God loves to build. I picture it like, it's a really crude, not crude, but like a simple example, like a Jenga tower, right? You can construct a very nice Jenga tower, very elaborate, and it's really high, and sin is just like a wrecking ball. It just likes to come in and just push right through it and collapse it all. And there's this weird thing, especially now, this war that we have with ourselves, where it's all about, if I don't feel right in my own body, then I get to mutilate and destroy my own body. That's becoming more mainstream, more normal, more celebrated. All right, or gender, I don't know the names for it, but gender bending, male, female, that's part of the engineering design. But no, it's instead, let's make that, like they can just be crisscrossed. They can be exchanged, they can be swapped, they can be borrowed, they can be played around with. I'm asking you, can you mess around with the engineering of a plane and expect it to fly? It's like, I'm just going to take this part out. I'm going to switch this for that. You're not an engineer, right? God is the engineer. He's like, this is how it works. But we're like, I don't think it works that way. So I'm just going to pull that plug or, smash that button or whatever. And it's going to look messy. It's going to look destructive. It's going to look bad. And it does. And it is. Sin likes to wreck those things. And then here's the part that's also really confusing, and that is this. It's almost like a stampede, right? If you don't go along with what people are saying about this, you're the weird person. You're the freak. You're the homophobe. You're the transphobe person. And all we're trying to do, and we want to do this lovingly. There's a way to do this obnoxiously, and there's a way to do this in a way that makes no one want to listen to us. I understand that. But all we want to do is just point out, there is an engineer over everything. And there is great evidence for that. Shouldn't we pay more attention to how he's designed things instead of sort of just, bull in a china shop, just sort of tornadoing around all this fragile stuff, and there are things shattering and breaking, but we're like, oh, that's just part of change, that's just part of progress. Or you don't know what you're doing, and you're causing a lot of damage. Don't moo like the rest of the herd. This is what's accepted. Okay, I guess it is. 2024, that's what it's about. Maybe not back in 1964, but, times change. Is that what it's about? We just get smarter the more time passes? No, I don't think so. I don't think that's how intelligence works. The more time passes, the more intelligent you just get. We're just More wisdom in 2024, more truth, more perspective. People say that. Is that true? According to the engineer of everything, we're on the downgrade. We're not getting enlightened. The bulbs are getting screwed off at a faster pace than ever before. Preach on that for a while. Let's move on. Who here has watched Top Gun? I want this to be a popular one. Who's watched the old one? Who's watched the new one? Yeah, man, I love the old one's okay for me. It's like it's great, yeah. But the new one, man, that just like it made me a Top Gun fan. So this whole thing about body and sexuality, we've talked about this already, but the whole broken compass thing, the whole feelings thing, let's bring it back to that real quick. Asking your emotions and feelings to lead the way is like asking us to fly a plane after watching Top Gun. It's all there. The best show you how to do it, right? Just go do it. And that's just, I'm not going to focus on this a lot because I already talked about emotions and feelings a lot, so I'm just going to end it with this. Feelings, you lead them. You don't be led by them. I am not trashing emotions or feelings. They're worthless pieces. You just amputate them off, cut them off. They're not spiritual. No, but they're not the captains of the ship. They're not the pilots of the plane either. I just feel like this. Therefore, that's going to run how I do everything. No. Emotions aren't designed like that. They're a great support system if you're leading them in the right direction, but they kind of need help. They need someone to say, they need an authority, a trustworthy, wise authority to say, here's the right direction. And then you leave your emotions there. Let's move on. Just a couple points here. Change is not always progress. Remember that. Just like, it's like other slogans, little phrases that when you actually try to actually understand them, you realize they actually don't hold water. More is not always better, right? Remember that phrase? I mean, you've heard that phrase. Or might makes right. These little phrases where it's like you can put a whole bunch of truth in like a little tiny little nugget. You have to be careful with that because that's not always as simple as that. What about the popularity thing? What about the idea that it's hard to tell people this, right? We have friends that we know that if we talk to them about this, there's going to be some tension. There's going to be some disagreement. We should have those conversations. We should try to have them in the best loving, most wise way possible. But what about the whole argument of, you Christians, you're on the wrong side of history. You're not with the times. You're stuck in the Stone Age. You're stuck in you're just old school. It's all about like almost like fashion and trends. You're trending so far back, and it's holding you back. Well, I would like to leave you with this thought here on that topic, and that is, come on now. My hands oh yeah. It's okay to be on the wrong side of history if you're on the right side of the trend. So in other words, handle a little smoke from people. Handle some pressure. Handle some disagreement. Because ultimately, at the end, what's going to be vindicated and proved right is not what was popular, it's what's true. So, yeah, is that hard? Listen. I'm like anyone. I don't like disagreeing with people and like I don't want to like discover what makes people want to disagree with me. No, it's uncomfortable, So this is not like, ooh, I know there are some people who love to fight and argue with other people and it's like their thing. But most of us don't like that. So this is not like, this is the fun thing to do if you're a Christian. No, this is, if you really want to love people, sometimes that means telling the truth they don't want to hear. And that's not the only way you relate to them. There are people where the only thing they want to do in your life is tell you truth. But they don't want to actually get to know you or spend time with you or love you. It's just like, tell you facts. That's terrible. So don't get me wrong there. If someone just preaches you all the time, they could be right, but you don't really care. Because, there's no relationship there, right? Jesus' crucifixion, right? Look at that. That's a great example. Wrong side of history. In the moment, it looked like the right thing to do. A lot of people were in agreement with it. But it was the wrong thing. And then I'll bring this up again also. Actually, I skipped out on that one. But let's be careful about the whole, people aren't accepting of that, therefore it must be right. People are accepting of it, therefore it must be right. Not as simple as that. Okay. Almost done here. One more point. We are all on different parts of the spectrum when it comes to suffering. So what do I mean by that? Well, bodies and sexuality, right? Let's point out a few ways that we do need help in this area. So number one, singleness. Singleness. It's not easy to be without a significant other. Some of us, we're all in different stages. We've all either maybe been in a different stage of that, or we are in that stage, whatever. But that's something that can be hard to deal with, right? Or broken relationships. I'm not going to ask you to raise hands on this. Who's got a broken relationship? But you get my drift, right? Bodies and sexuality. Same-sex attraction. This one is an unspoken one. No one likes to talk about this. There are people out there who they struggle. They'll admit they have an attraction to the same sex, to the same gender, and you know what? They didn't ask for that. They didn't necessarily go out of the way to choose that. They can remember having that for as long as they can remember. And you know what? It's awkward to talk about. It's sort of messy to sort through. So most of the time it's easy not to bring it up. But my point is, there's different ways that we need help. That we need help. Basically, my point is you look at all these things and you realize, as usual, we're not good enough for this stuff. We're not wise enough for this stuff. We need someone greater and someone better and more qualified and more equipped to help us out. And that's where Jesus comes back in. And we're going to bring up Jesus more in different ways later on. But just wanting to recognize this. When we talk about living life here in a cursed world with a physical body and walking through the sexuality stuff, it's like a minefield. There's a lot of things to sort through. But I'm not trying to overwhelm you with how impossible it is to sort through it. I'm trying to tell you how impossible it is to sort through it without divine help. Without this being in the supernatural realm named Jesus who offers to help us. Whoa. So let's land this plane. Also, peer pressure. Talked about that. Landing the plane. This is a quick, retractable landing gear is already out. The runway is like 2 feet long, okay? A little short reminder to our connecting flight, and that is trust God's design. That's a very important step in being open to the supernatural realm. Trust that the person sitting on the throne knows what he's doing. We're asking ourselves to trust the engineer of everything. So let's ask him to do that for us tonight. Dear God, this world is hard to live in. It's not easy. And Lord, I'm sure all of us have our different stories and experiences.